Have you ever let someone's bad mood ruin your entire day? Maybe a rude comment, a frustrating coworker, or even a stranger's negativity left you feeling off balance. It's almost like they have a remote control for your emotions, and with one push of a button, you're angry, upset, or drained. Why does it happen so easily? Why do we give away so much power over our peace? What if you could remain calm no matter what? Like those people who never seem fazed, even in the middle of chaos. You might think it's impossible, but it's not. There's a way to master your emotions so completely that no one else can pull your strings. The kind of calm that feels almost unshakable, something you might call Jedi-level calm. This isn't about pretending nothing bothers you or bottling up your feelings. It's about learning how to protect your peace, even when life throws challenges your way. In this video, we're going to break it all down and share advice that will make you rethink how you react. Some of it might surprise you. It might even challenge the way you've been handling conflict or stress. So, if you're tired of letting other people's moods control you, keep watching. The steps to unshakable calm are simpler than you think, but they'll require honesty and a little courage. Let's begin. Toxic people can take a toll on your peace of mind and emotional health. Their constant negativity, manipulation, or drama can leave you feeling drained. It's not always easy to recognize how much someone's behavior is affecting you until you step back and assess your emotions. One of the most important steps in protecting your peace is limiting your exposure to these individuals. Take Sarah, for example. She always seemed to have some kind of drama in her life. Whether it was complaining about coworkers, stirring up gossip, or seeking sympathy for every minor inconvenience, Sarah thrived on attention. At first, it seemed harmless, but spending time with her felt heavier each time. Her energy was exhausting, and it became clear that her presence wasn't healthy for me. While cutting her off completely wasn't an option, I had to make changes to protect my mental space. Setting boundaries with someone like Sarah doesn't have to lead to confrontation. Start by gently reducing the time you spend with them. Instead of engaging in every conversation or meeting up every time they ask, limit your availability. When they try to bring up unnecessary drama, shift the conversation to neutral or positive topics. For instance, if Sarah started complaining about a coworker, I'd change the subject to something light, like a new hobby or upcoming plans. Over time, this approach naturally reduced the intensity of our interactions without creating conflict. Family dynamics can make limiting exposure even trickier. You can't always avoid family members, even when their behavior is toxic. However, you can still set boundaries to create a more peaceful environment. If a relative constantly criticizes you, don't feel obligated to engage. Politely excuse yourself or respond with neutral statements like, "I see your point," or "Thanks for your input." You don't have to argue or defend yourself every time. Distance doesn't always mean physical separation. It can also mean emotional detachment from their negativity. Focusing on peaceful relationships is just as important as limiting exposure to toxic ones. Surround yourself with people who lift you up and bring positivity into your life. Spend time with friends who genuinely care about you and encourage your growth. These relationships act as a counterbalance to any negativity you might face, providing support and comfort. When you nurture healthy connections, you create a stronger foundation for maintaining peace. By managing your interactions carefully, you can take control of your emotional space. Limiting exposure to toxic people isn't about pushing everyone away. It's about prioritizing your well-being. Having high expectations often leads to unnecessary disappointment. It's natural to hope for the best from people or situations, but when reality doesn't meet those hopes, the result can feel frustrating and disheartening. Whether it's expecting someone to behave a certain way or hoping for perfect outcomes, these expectations often set us up for failure. The higher they are, the greater the gap between what we want and what actually happens. I remember working for a boss who was incredibly demanding. He had high standards, which wasn't the problem, but his communication style was harsh and unappreciative. I expected him to acknowledge hard work, offer clear feedback, and be fair with his team. Every project I worked on, I hoped for some recognition or constructive advice. Instead, I often received criticism or silence. At first, I thought if I just worked harder or showed more effort, things would improve. But no matter what I did, his attitude remained the same. Over time, my high expectations became a source of constant frustration and disappointment. One day, I realized I needed to shift my perspective. Instead of hoping for him to change, I adjusted my expectations. I stopped relying on his praise or validation to feel good about my work. Instead, I focused on doing the best job I could and finding satisfaction in my own efforts. I acknowledged that his personality and management style were unlikely to change, and I stopped taking his behavior personally. This shift didn't change my boss, but it made me feel calmer and less frustrated. I accepted the reality of the situation without letting it define my emotional state. Adjusting expectations doesn't mean lowering your standards or becoming cynical. It's about being realistic. People are human, and they have flaws. Just like situations can be unpredictable. It's fine to hope for good things, but it's also important to recognize that perfection isn't realistic. By understanding this, you can prepare yourself for a range of outcomes without feeling crushed when things don't go your way. The benefits of adjusted expectations are immense. You stop tying your happiness to external factors, like how others treat you or how situations unfold. Instead, you focus on what you can control, your own actions, mindset, and responses. This reduces stress and helps you maintain emotional balance. You'll also find that relationships improve because you stop expecting people to be what they're not. Accepting others as they are creates more room for patience and understanding. By managing your expectations, you free yourself from constant disappointment and create space for peace and contentment. You don't have to lower your hopes. You just learn to balance them with reality. This shift brings a deeper sense of calm, even in imperfect situations. Dealing with annoying people can feel exhausting, especially when their behavior seems constant. But what if you could handle them without letting it get to you? One trick is to treat them like toddlers. This doesn't mean being condescending. It means understanding that their behavior might not change, but your reaction can. Emotional detachment is the key. Take Kevin, for example. Kevin was that coworker who always had something to complain about, whether it was the office coffee, a project deadline, or even the weather. Kevin had a knack for turning minor issues into major problems. He'd interrupt meetings with unnecessary comments and always seemed to find a way to make things about him. At first, I tried reasoning with him, hoping he'd understand how his behavior affected others, but no matter what I said, Kevin didn't change. One day, I realized something. Kevin's behavior wasn't that different from a toddler throwing a tantrum. Like a toddler, he craved attention and often acted out to get it. That's when I decided to change my approach. Instead of engaging or getting frustrated, I started responding to him as if I were dealing with a child. When Kevin complained, I acknowledged it with a simple, calm response like, "I hear you," without diving into his negativity. When he interrupted meetings, I redirected the focus back to the task at hand, without giving him extra attention. This approach worked surprisingly well. By treating his outbursts as background noise rather than personal attacks, I kept my emotional energy intact. Just like with toddlers, staying calm and setting boundaries helped create a healthier dynamic. I stopped expecting Kevin to behave differently and instead focused on how I could respond in a way that protected my peace. The parallels between toddler and adult behavior are surprisingly clear. Both can act out when they feel overlooked or stressed. Both can have trouble regulating their emotions, and both tend to push boundaries when given the chance. The key is to approach these behaviors with patience and emotional detachment. To implement this strategy, start by recognizing the patterns in someone's behavior. Are they seeking attention, or are they trying to provoke a reaction? Once you identify the pattern, respond calmly and consistently. Avoid engaging in arguments or trying to fix their behavior. Instead, focus on redirecting conversations or setting boundaries. For example, if they start complaining, acknowledge their feelings briefly and steer the topic towards something constructive. If they persist, simply excuse yourself or disengage politely. The goal is not to be dismissive, but to detach emotionally. By seeing their behavior for what it is, a reflection of them, not you, you take away their power to upset you. Over time, this approach creates more balance in your interactions and helps you maintain your peace, no matter how they act. Sometimes, the simplest response can save you from unnecessary stress. Saying okay to everything might sound counterproductive, but it's surprisingly effective when dealing with difficult people or situations. It's not about agreeing or giving up. It's about staying neutral and refusing to let others pull you into their emotional chaos. Let me tell you about Aunt Linda. She's the family member who always has something to say about everything, whether it's your career choices, your outfit, or even the way you arrange your living room. Aunt Linda has an opinion, and she isn't shy about sharing it. For years, I tried explaining my choices or defending myself against her constant critiques. But no matter how logical my arguments were, Aunt Linda always found a way to argue back or make me feel small. One day, I decided to try something different. When Aunt Linda made one of her remarks, I simply said, "Okay." She paused, clearly expecting me to push back or justify myself. When I didn't, she seemed unsure of what to say next. Every time she made another comment, I repeated, "Okay," with a calm tone and a slight smile. Over time, her critiques became less frequent, and I noticed she didn't get the satisfaction she used to from our interactions. The power of a neutral response like "okay" is that it doesn't feed into the other person's need for conflict or validation. It acknowledges their comment without agreeing, disagreeing, or escalating the situation. By staying calm and neutral, you take control of the interaction without getting emotionally involved. Using okay strategically is about setting boundaries without confrontation. For example, if someone criticizes your choices, a simple okay signals that you've heard them but aren't engaging further. If someone tries to provoke you with an argument, okay diffuses the tension and prevents the situation from escalating. It's especially useful when dealing with people who thrive on drama or want to draw you into unnecessary debates. The benefits of non-engagement are immense. First, it protects your emotional energy. You don't have to carry the weight of someone else's negativity or get dragged into their problems. Second, it shifts the dynamic. When the other person realizes they can't provoke a reaction, they often stop trying. Finally, it helps you stay grounded. You remain in control of your emotions and responses, no matter how others act. Saying okay isn't about being passive. It's about choosing peace over conflict. It's a way to maintain your composure, keep interactions short and simple, and avoid unnecessary stress. By mastering the art of the neutral response, you'll find that many situations resolve themselves without you needing to say much at all. Being unavailable is one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to set boundaries and protect your energy. It doesn't mean cutting people off entirely. It means being selective about where and how you spend your time. When you stop making yourself constantly accessible, you regain control over your life and emotional well-being. Sarah, a close friend of mine, used to struggle with this. She was always the person everyone relied on, whether it was her colleagues, family, or friends. They knew Sarah would drop everything to help. At first, she didn't mind. She liked being dependable and useful. But over time, it became overwhelming. Calls late at night, constant favors, and never-ending demands drained her energy. Even small things, like people expecting her to answer texts immediately, started to wear her down. She felt exhausted and resentful, but didn't know how to say no without hurting anyone. One day, after another sleepless night helping a coworker meet a deadline, Sarah realized she couldn't keep going like this. She decided to make a change by becoming less available. She didn't announce it or make a big deal out of it. She simply stopped responding right away to every call or message. When people asked for favors, she paused before agreeing and said, "Let me check my schedule." Sometimes she simply said she wasn't available without offering an explanation. The results were surprising. At first, people were taken aback. They weren't used to hearing no from Sarah. But over time, they adjusted. Those who truly valued her began respecting her time. Others, who only contacted her when they needed something, slowly drifted away. Sarah felt lighter and more in control of her life. By being unavailable, she created space for herself and prioritized her own well-being. Setting boundaries doesn't have to be dramatic. It's about managing others' expectations and showing them how to treat you. If someone calls you constantly, you don't have to pick up every time. Let them leave a voicemail or text and respond when it's convenient for you. If coworkers expect you to always stay late, start setting limits by leaving at your scheduled time. When you prioritize your time, others will start to respect it too. The key is consistency. If you occasionally break your own boundaries, people will assume they can push them again. Being unavailable doesn't mean you're being selfish. It means you're protecting your energy for what truly matters. It also helps you maintain healthier relationships because you're not running on empty or feeling resentful. By learning to manage others' expectations and saying no when necessary, you create a life that feels balanced and manageable. Protecting your energy isn't just about avoiding burnout. It's about making room for the things that bring you joy and peace. Learning to handle life's challenges without letting them drain your energy is a powerful skill. From setting boundaries and saying okay to staying emotionally detached or being strategically unavailable, these tools can help you stay calm and focused in any situation. Each step empowers you to protect your peace and create healthier relationships with others and yourself. Remember, peace isn't weakness, it's strength. When you maintain your composure and prioritize your well-being, you take control of your life. Peace gives you the power to handle even the most difficult people or situations with grace and confidence. If this video helped you, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. Let us know your favorite tip or how you maintain your peace. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more practical and inspiring advice.